Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our live webinar this afternoon. My name is Siobhan Curry, and I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at Incremental. We're thrilled that you're able to join us as we explore how non-profits can attain, retain, and grow your donors with the power of AI. So before I introduce the speakers, I want to let you know that there will be opportunities for you to ask questions at the end of the webinar, so please feel free to submit them in the chat box. The event will also be recorded and shared with you at a later date, ensuring that you can revisit the valuable insights gained today. So let me introduce you to our speakers. First, we have Graham Donnell, who is our pre-sales lead here at Incremental, and he's been with us for just over 3 years. Graham brings with him a wealth of Microsoft Business Applications experience, particularly working with non-profits. Our second speaker is Jivtesh Singh. Jivtesh is a Power Platform and Business Applications Architect in Microsoft's Tech for Social Impact team. In his current role, Jivtesh plays a pivotal role in helping large non-profits and UN organisations understand and harness Microsoft solutions to advance their missions through technology. Today, Jivtesh is actually dialing in from Vienna, where he's due to present at the UN Low Code Conference straight after this webinar. So thank you, Jivtesh, for taking the time to join us today. So now let me hand you over to Graham.
Hi, everyone. So what I'm going to do initially is just take us through the agenda for today's webinar. What we want to do is cover off a few bases. So we want to initially talk to you a little bit about the Microsoft Cloud and AI. Both myself and Jivtesh will speak to that. Siobhan, if we could move to the next slide, please. And once we've done that introduction to the Microsoft Cloud and some of the AI components that we're going to talk about today, we're then going to go into a very simplified demo. Now, we are only going to scratch the surface in terms of the functionality that both the Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit and the AI tools give you, but it's going to give you a little insight on how we can make these tools work better for us, streamline process, and essentially free up people's time to work on other parts of their role. So we're going to start that off in Dynamics 365 Customer Insights, where we're going to look at segmentation, how we can segment our member database, our donor database, our contacts. We're then going to move over into Sales AI and use the Copilot tool in there to show how we can automate communications and how we can generate tailored recommendations from that. And then to look at a reporting side of it, we're also going to look at the fundraising performance dashboard in Power BI. To finish up the session, Jivtesh is then going to speak to us very briefly about ensuring how we responsibly use AI within our organisations. All of these tools and all of this functionality seems really useful and seems really key to our role, but are we using it in a responsible way, and have we considered all of the ramifications of using it as well? As Siobhan mentioned, we'll then open the session up to a Q&A. So any questions that you have, please post them in the chat. You will be able to ask them at the end as well, and we will try our best to answer those for you. Next slide, please. Go on. So what I wanted to do was just talk initially about the Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit and some of the AI components. Jivtesh is then going to speak a little bit more in particular about those technologies and what those technologies are and how we can use them. But essentially, the Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit has been around for some time. It gives us a baseline of functionality. It gives us a rich feature set geared specifically towards the not-for-profit industry. So we have things like grant management, we have things like fundraising and engagement apps, we have volunteer portals, and we have lots of different Microsoft 365 tools integrated with all of those. What we're seeing now is all of these features are being enabled and empowered with AI components as well. And what that AI component will do is play a pivotal role in essentially bringing new levels of functionality to an existing platform. It will allow us to enhance our collaboration. So we'll see that a little bit when we're looking at the Sales Copilot AI piece. It will allow us to make data-driven decisions. So when I'm looking at the Power BI fundraising dashboard, not only am I looking at bits of information, but I'm also going to be able to query that information to help me as a user make better decisions and use that data in a better way. Of course, we're constantly chasing the optimization of our processes. We're constantly looking at better ways of doing things, better ways of improving our processes, and better ways of making the technology bend to our processes and make it work our way. And one of the main things that AI has given us as a user base is the ability to automate those tedious and repetitive tasks. So what do we have to do every time a donor emails us? What do we have to do every time a membership is up for renewal? What are those automated repetitive tasks that we can allow AI to do? But fundamentally, it's not just a technological advancement. AI, like anything in the world of IT, anything within the world of technology, needs data. In the same way that our cars need petrol and diesel and electricity to run, these AI components need data to run. So it's not just a simple matter of plugging in the solution and thinking that it's a silver bullet to the lack of collaboration or the lack of automation of our processes. So it's very important that we address that as well. Next slide, please, Siobhan. So at this point, I'm just going to hand over to Jivtesh, and he's going to talk a little bit about Copilot and Dynamics 365 and some of the AI components which are available for the not-for-profit industry.
Perfect. Thanks, Graham, and thanks to you guys for having me here. I love talking about this with customers, and in the last couple of weeks, as I've been speaking to our nonprofit customers, one of the things I do is just ask. There we go. Can you hear me still? Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, you're back. Sorry.
Great. So one of the things that as I hear from nonprofit customers around how they are seeing AI, and I ask them this question as to how many people in the room are using ChatGPT, and often, about 70% of the people in the room will raise their hands, and their leaders are often surprised that, oh, interesting, okay, a lot more people are using it, but at the same time, being aware of the fact that that is probably a not super secure way of harnessing the power of these large language models. So as Microsoft, we consider this our responsibility to provide these AI tools to you in the tools that you use on a day-to-day basis. So for Dynamics 365 customer experience, service, finance, can we give you that same capability of the large language model within the context of your business application so you can better serve the communities that you serve? And the most important thing for us as we start to do this is that to point out that we'll talk about responsible AI, the fact that any data that you use with these large language models stays in your tenant. The promise from Microsoft that you see with our compliance guidelines is that we'd never use your data to train these large language models as well. And then now you've got this really cool tool. AI has been around for a while, but what has happened is we've got this ability to better understand the language. So the computers can understand our language better. There's also, of course, the multimodal capabilities around vision and video understanding. But the first step, which we've started integrating in every part of the product, is around natural language understanding and generation. So if you go over to the next slide, I've got a few more examples in there. And I let you guys read through based on which area of your nonprofit you work through, but I'll point out some areas which I've seen being picked up quite quickly. So the first on the customer experience side is getting summaries of the emails as well as the documents that you're getting in, and now getting this in the context of your business application. When you're starting to run a campaign, a dream of nonprofits has been to have that highly personalized segment of one. But then when you create campaigns, it's for large segment of customers. What this new AI Copilot capability allows you to do inside customer insights journeys is to create these highly personalized campaign messages that appeal to the supporters in the language that as well as the causes that they care about. If you look over from the service side, often it's the same set of problems which are being solved quite often. And we've had capabilities in Dynamics 365 for service, which lets you figure out similar cases in the past. But now it's a lot more advanced with these AI capabilities advancements where it's able to generate responses for you. You're able to point it to internal as well as external knowledge sources that you have, and then it's able to create a highly succinct answer that your customer service agent can utilize to respond to complicated requests that they have in a much more faster way. So these are, two quick capabilities which I've seen being utilized quite often. So, the ability to generate campaign customer service requests which have gone into different departments in the right way. I'll come back shortly later and I'll talk about what our journey has been like from a responsible AI perspective, and also why, when you start to utilize this from a Dynamics 365 Copilot capabilities, you can be quite assured that your data is in the right place. So back at you, Graham.
Perfect, Jivtesh. Thank you very much for that. So what Jivtesh has done there is position some of the technologies and really showed the sheer breadth of functionality that we have, not only within the Dynamics 365 stack, but also now AI-enabled tools within the Dynamics 365 and wider Microsoft 365 stack as well. So just to bring us back to the title of our webinar today, Attain, retain and grow our donors and our membership engagement. I've now positioned 3 very simple demo scenarios that I want to walk us through. The first one is in that Attain model, and what we're going to do is use Dynamics 365 Customer Insights Journeys, which Jivtesh has just talked about, and how a member of the marketing team within our not-for-profit organisation can segment data using AI, can then build journeys using an AI component, and actually use AI to then build out content and collateral to essentially engage in a wider audience and attract those people to come to your not-for-profit organisation as a donor, as a volunteer, whatever the case may be. We're then going to fast forward a bit and assume that we have now attained a new wave of members and we want to try and retain those people. And what we're going to do is, again, map out a membership type scenario where we're using Sales AI Copilot to address people's concerns, an email coming in, how we can then generate content going back out of that, how we can summarize that content, and how we can produce replies going back to the user. And then grow. To grow something, we need to have a holistic view of our data. We need to understand where are there gaps in the organization, what campaigns generate the most income, where do most of our donors come from, what is the demographic of those donors, so that we can then identify gaps in our demographics, or if we want to focus on a specific demographic, what is that demographic and how can we work better with them. So we're going to then look a little bit at a Power BI fundraising dashboard, and again, some of the nice little AI components and tools that come within that. Next slide, please, Siobhan, where I'm just going to talk then, just set the scene on a couple of these scenarios, just so we can get ourselves put ourselves in the shoes of these users and then really see what the demo brings to life as we walk into that part of the webinar today. So we're going to start off in Customer Insights Journeys, as I mentioned, and we have Joanne, who is a member of the marketing team in the Non-Profit Institute. Joanne has been asked to essentially build out a campaign to attract people who maybe have engaged with the organisation. Maybe they're in a subscription centre, maybe they've attended an event, maybe they've registered for an email newsletter, whatever the case may be. And we want to attract those people who have engaged with the organisation but haven't yet donated, haven't yet become a subscriber, a donating member, haven't yet contributed to the Institute itself. So we're going to walk through a scenario that Joanne can now use the system to essentially use AI to try and build out that process for her and make that process easier, but also more reliable for her as well. We're then going to move over and look at the Sales AI Copilot. Stephen works in the membership team and he's regularly tasked with receiving inquiries into a mailbox. Now, Stephen's biggest problem is that so many inquiries come in, it takes him so long to reply to these. He has to go off and get personalised information for each one of these inquiries to make sure that he's answering the query in the correct way, understanding the member, understanding the ask. So we're going to look at a way that he can use AI to simplify that process and to streamline that part of his role. And then to help grow that donor member database, that engagement with users, he's then going to look to use a Power BI dashboard to kind of get that holistic view of the organization, that holistic view of the member. So weaving through this will be ways in which both Stephen and Joanne can use AI to essentially achieve these tasks in a much more structured way and a much more reliable way. Next slide, please, Siobhan, which I think is my demo cue. Yeah, absolutely. So I am going to share my screen. No, not that one. Apologies. And essentially what I have here is an instance of Dynamics 365. So I'm in the first persona of Joanne, who's a member of the marketing team, and she has gone into the fundraising and engagement app within their not-for-profit implementation. You'll see down the left-hand side here, I have a whole range of functionality and a whole range of tables, which I'm using within my not-for-profit solution. So I have all of my contacts, I have all of my prospecting, my gifting, my pledging, my donation, whatever the case may be. And the task that Joanne has is being able now to work out from all of these 216 contacts who has engaged with us, but who actually hasn't donated anything in terms of monetary value, maybe even donated their time, whatever the case may be within that. So Joanne's going to start off with this list of donors and is going to then move over into the segmentation part of customer insights journeys. What I've done is I've built out a contacts who are donors list within this. Now, what I'm able to do is just actually create this as a new segment, and I will just call this training for now. And I'm targeting contacts within our member database. And what I can basically do now is, rather than worry about all of the data that's in the system, worry about understanding where a contact links to a donation and what do we classify as a donation, and worrying about understanding all of those data models, I can just simply now start to type in natural language into this box. And I could simply say contacts who have not donated. What that will do then is go off and build that query model for me. It will look at contacts who are in our member database. It will go off and look at the donation records associated to them. And if one does not exist, it will then pull up that contact for me and will add that contact to this segment. You'll also see how many suggested replies and how many suggested models we have here as well. Contacts whose last name is Smith, contacts with a birthday in the next month. These are all natural language inputs which we are entering into the solution. What that has meant for me is I now have a contacts who are donors list. So it's looking at active, it's looking that they've been created in the last 6 months, where donation is 0 and the contact type is not donor. So that's the query that it's built for me based off just that very, very simple input that I was able to add. What I can now do with this segment, so the system has gone off and told me that 50 of the 500 people that we have in the system have not donated in the last 6 months. And I can now go off and essentially build a journey to now engage with these people. So I'm going to look at my contacts who are not donors segment, and I'm going to send them an invite to an event that we're running, which is going to drive donation, which is going to encourage people to donate. Now, this entire journey is also built using AI. So I would take input to say, I want to send an email as the first point. If the email is opened, I want to send them a text message. I then want to wait 3 days, and then I want to send them details of the event. So it's all possible to now build these journeys out using the AI model as well. A further layer within that is then the actual content and collateral, which I can now produce. So you can see here that I've started building a template email for this event. I've got a date, I've got some sponsorship, I've got some details of it as well. But what the Copilot AI add-on will allow me to do is then give me creative ideas, give me additional information that I want to produce for this. So you'll see here that it's asking me to describe the content that I want. So for this particular event, I may just want to highlight some of the services and some of the offerings that the Nonprofit Institute have available to them. I may want to talk about memberships. I may want to talk about other events that we're doing. And essentially that will allow me to type this information in. But again, as you've seen with the Segment AI Builder, I'm also able to select some key points and some ideas of what I want this to simply do. And I'm also able to give it a tone of voice. So do I want to be really engaging? Do I want to be adventurous? Do I want to be a little bit more laid back and not as structured within the information? What this is going to do is then produce that content and allow me to then simply paste that content from the AI Builder, the AI Copilot, and bring it across into my email content within the system as well. So you can see here that it's produced quite a detailed paragraph for me. It's almost time for our annual nonprofit event showcase. Join us on the 1st of December to be part of something bigger. And you can see that it's pulling this information from the details that we already have stored within the email. Once I've done that, it will also then allow me to have a email draft, so a body of the email or an email text that will accompany the actual content that we have. And again, you can see that it will pull in your company name, it will pull in the details of the event, the start time, the end time, whatever the case may be. And essentially I get a range of different options within here, which I can then choose from. And it's a simple matter of just simply clicking add to my draft, and this information will then be brought across into the body of the email. What comes after this then is all the standard functionality that we get as far as the product goes. So I can save this now as a content block, which I can use over and over again. But rather than me having to worry about my own creativeness and being able to produce something as seamless as this, I can use the AI Copilot to essentially generate this component for me. At this point, I'm now able to then simply say, I'm happy with this, and I can save this information off into the journey. So that's the first part of the demonstration relating to how Joanne, as a member of the marketing team, can first of all use AI to basically segment their information. So look at ways in which natural language can be typed in to identify contacts who are active, who were created in the last 6 months, who haven't donated to the organization, and essentially pull them into a segment which we can then use as part of a customer journey, i.e. an event that we're building here. And then the second part of that was then just using the AI Copilot tool to essentially build out the content and collateral that we engage with those users in, or those members in, whatever the case may be. So we're able then to produce that content from there. Now I just want to move on to the second scenario, which is Stephen, who is a member of the membership team. So what you'll see here is we have an email which has been sent out to Graham to say, hi Graham, your membership is due for renewal in the next 6 weeks. If you have any queries, please give us a call. Please don't hesitate to contact us. What you'll also see then is a couple of emails back and forth where I've sent a query in to say, have you got any other membership types? What are the benefits? And some information has then come back to that particular member as well. What I can do now using the Sales Copilot AI tool is now essentially pick up this email thread. So let's say, for argument's sake, that this thread has gone back and forth for 3 or 4 more weeks. There are 10 or 12 more emails. There's quite a lot of content now going back and forth between the membership team and this particular member. At this point, Stephen can come in, and the first thing you'll see at the bottom right-hand corner is a summary of this email. So I can see that Graham has asked the membership team about the different membership types and their benefits. I can see that the membership team has provided a breakdown of those membership plans, and I can see that he was informed his membership is up for renewal in the next 6 weeks. So quite a high level summary, but real tangible, useful piece of information that I can now use to go back and engage with this particular member. So what I can do now is decide to reply, and again, we have the ability for the system to now draft email responses for me. So what I will do, I'll just click on the reply to an inquiry, and similar to the content ideas that we just produced in Customer Insights Journeys, the system will now draft a reply to an inquiry email for me. What you should hopefully notice is it's now pulling content directly from the email thread. So it's saying, thanks for getting in touch. I understand you're interested in membership plans. Our basic membership is $9.99. Our premium membership is $29.99. And you can see that this is being pulled from the email thread that's already been sent. If there were a longer history with Graham, it would pull in things such as, we understand that you first renewed with us a year ago, or you first engaged with us a year ago. You've been a member now for 2 years. As part of your 2-year membership, you can avail of other offers and other advantages and other benefits. So it's basically taking all of the information that we already store on a lot of these people and bringing it now to our customer-facing engagements with them. We can, of course, adjust as similar. So we can make it a slightly shorter email. We can sound more professional, and we can draft it in different languages as well. So not only is this a natural language processing tool, it's now developing into a multi-language processing tool as well. So if I were to say, I want this to be a shorter email, but I still want to sound professional, and click on update, it will then give me essentially a shorter version of that first draft of content that was initially produced. So you can see now I'm getting straight to the point, talking about memberships and talking about those fees. What I can do at this point now is essentially go back to my original version. I can try again, but what I'll want to do is essentially now paste this over into the body of the email and send that email back to Graham, giving him that information and giving him that detail. Last but not least, we can now look at some of this information holistically across the board. So we started off the demo by looking at the way that we can use AI to build segments. We then looked at how it can produce content ideas for us in terms of email, and we finished that with a Sales Copilot AI demonstration of how we can summarize emails, craft intuitive responses, detailed responses using data that we've already shared with the member, and being able to essentially speed up that process of both analysing the emails, reviewing them, but also then producing meaningful content back to the user. So now we want to be able to essentially look at our implementations, look at our solutions, look at our data holistically, and essentially develop ways of understanding how we can improve donors. So we're now moving on to our grow aspect of today's webinar. Here I have a very standard Power BI dashboard, which is showing me lots of valuable information. It's telling me how far I'm towards my donation target, how many donors we have holistically, how many gifts we receive, what's our retention rates, and so on and so forth. And these are all very incredibly useful visuals where I can then start to further drill down and see more detail. But what AI has also given us is not only the ability to produce content and to streamline processes and to make repetitive tasks easier, it's also allowing us now to query information directly within our system. So you can see here that I have some natural language inputs, which is then going to show me tangible information coming back out of the solution. So if I ask for show me the total that was raised last year, it's telling me over £11 million was raised as part of our donations. It will then ask me to show me something in the last month. Okay, last month is blank. Why is that? Why haven't we donated? Is there something that we need to look at? But I could then just simply change that to be the last 6 months, and it will go off and it will build that for me and tell me within the last 6 months how much information has been raised, how much collateral has been raised for that. And there are loads again of suggestions, so people will not feel that they're unsupported in using these AI components. They will not feel, well, what sort of language do I need to type in? There are examples and there are suggestions throughout these solutions embedded within the information that we have. So what we're able to do is then simply drill in and see overall our donor retention rate is 62. But last year we went as low as 46 within that retention model. I can then look into that data and I can drill into that data and see where did we have lack of retention, what demographic, what geographical area, what specific industry, whatever the case may be. So this is a very intuitive way of not just simply relying on fixed dashboards, but being able to now drill into those fixed dashboards and pull out more meaningful information within that. I'm sure there will be a few questions around this part of it, and all that I can say at this point is that we are simply only scratching the surface with some of the functionality that we are demonstrating and showing here today. The main thing to take away from it, though, is that these AI components are being woven into our first-party applications. They are not separate applications that you need to deploy. They are not separate applications that you need to necessarily train users a lot on, because they are woven into the applications that we use day in, day out already. Happy to take any questions on these at the end, but I'm just going to hand back to Siobhan, who's going to share screen again, and Jivtesh is then going to speak to us a little bit about the responsible AI strategy and how this is not just something that has happened overnight. It has been essentially a work in progress for a number of years. Jivtesh, over to yourself.
Perfect. Thanks, Graham. And as always, there was a beautiful, articulate showcase of what is actually possible, making the technology that is coming in real for the nonprofits so they can drive their missions better. So at Microsoft, as this we run on trust, right? Microsoft Cloud, that is one of the important things. And this is not a new journey for us. We started off, from 2016, where Satya, our CEO, published out about the importance of safety, security, and fairness when we are building AI into our products. As a Microsoft employee myself, we have to go through AI fairness and safety and security training and get it certified pretty much every quarter. And then if you were paying really close attention to as Graham was showcasing these AI capabilities to you, you would have noticed that whenever there was AI generated content, you would have seen that this content has been generated by AI in there. So providing feedback to the users. We also, published out then over the next, 5 or 6 years, Microsoft's responsible AI standards, the core principles around fairness, privacy and security, transparency, reliability and safety, inclusiveness and accountability. So these are the core principles that any work around AI that's embedded into a product we need to be thinking about. And as Microsoft, we think about them. As I mentioned earlier, with the Copilot set of products, we ground them based on these principles. We test them out on a regular basis around that as well. But we also recognize that these principles are not really self-executing. As AI regulations evolve, you as a nonprofit also need to establish principles and guardrails and guidance for setting up your own governance systems, because the data that you use and underneath the AI, you need to make sure that there's no bias in that data. So for that, we've been publishing out responsible AI dashboards as well as tools wherein you can first uh, build a model and then test out the model for things like safety, fairness, inclusiveness. Is there some bias in there? So giving you that capability as well. And then finally, there is, of course, oversight. There needs to be ongoing monitoring, reporting, auditing, compliance that you're used to expecting from any product in the Microsoft Cloud. All of that has been built in as well. So with these individual steps of the journey, as you've seen, coming across over the last decade, when last year we had this big explosion of generative AI going across with everyone looking at it, we feel we were at the right place to meet that AI moment. But as you can imagine, this is the first step on the way. But I think we all need to work together to make sure that as we take the goodness of these AI tools, just like a sharp knife, we know how to use a knife. When I'm cutting something, chopping something out, I learned pretty much my first chopping lesson that I can end up cutting my finger, despite the warnings from my uh, the teacher who was training me. That was an embarrassing story there. But it's the same way as you start to roll out these AI tools, making sure that within your organizations you've thought about all of these capabilities. So if you were to move over to the next slide there, you can have some comfort within the fact that when you start to utilize these capabilities, you're not alone in there. So we've got about 126,000 organizations that have experienced Copilot in Dynamics 365 and the wider Power Platform over the last year itself. And it's just not just about the experience. If you look deeper under some of the numbers we've released recently, when people start to use these copilot capabilities, they end up finishing more of their work as well. So a great example I like to point out to people is that if you're using new people who start to build out a workflow in Power Automate connecting with Dynamics 365, they're about 70% more likely to finish their workflow if they're using Copilot, which is just guiding them along the process as well. And as you think of these, applications for your staff, usability and adoption is a big task that you are always thinking about. And a Copilot, which and it's important the word Copilot at Microsoft, that's very well thought out for us. It's not autopilot that's doing some work for us. It's a Copilot, someone who's sitting by your side, this smart individual who does all the boring stuff that we don't want to do and gives us a head start around that. So that can help you really better adoption around the tools that you're implementing as well. So with that, I'll pass it back to Graham. Thank you.
Yes, so just to then close off today's session, we just wanted to essentially give some insight into some of the tools that we talked about today, some of the insights that Jivtesh were able to give us. And essentially what the Copilot and AI components provide is the ability to build better solutions and to build those faster. So across those organizations that Jivtesh just mentioned, what we're seeing is that as much as a 60% higher success rate of building out these solutions and building out the components within them. We're also then seeing a higher rate of success in terms of user adoption and the usability of those tools as well. If anyone has any questions at this point, I'm not sure if anything's come through on the chat, but if there are any questions, please do take the opportunity to ask. Myself and Jivtesh will try our best to answer them for you.
Okay, thanks for that, Graham. We do actually have a couple of questions and we have time to ask and answer them. So the first question I've got is, how can Dynamics 365 for nonprofit help organisations streamline their donor management processes?
Yes, good question. Donor management is traditionally a part of the not-for-profit solution or the not-for-profit architecture, which needs to be adapted quite a lot for organizations in order to mimic the process that they have internally with them. So Dynamics as a whole will allow organizations to streamline that by, first of all, providing you a consolidated data set. The biggest issue that we find with streamlining of donor processes is that donors originate from multiple avenues. It could be a Just Giving page, it could be a Facebook page, could be an event that's been ran. So these donors come from a range of different directions within the solution, and some legacy systems then use different applications to manage those processes. So you have somebody who donates on a Monday in Just Giving in System A. That same person could donate via a different platform later that week, and they would find themselves in a different system, in a different database somewhere else. So the first part of it is that consolidated data model, that single view of the donor, that single view of the member, which allows you to then essentially leverage the rest of your processes after that. So now we have all of the donors that we work with. We have all of the background information on them, why they donated, where they donated from, what campaign that then related to. And we can then start to use that information to then deploy some of the techniques that we talked about today. So target those people in 12 months, 6 months, 3 months, whatever the case may be. Essentially develop personas from them as well. So do people tend to donate at a big event, say the London Marathon or Children in Need or whatever the case may be? Or do people prefer to donate smaller amounts but more regularly? So maybe they donate via direct debit, maybe they donate in small amounts on a weekly basis, something like that. So the main thing that it gives us is that consolidated view. From that consolidated view of the donor, we can then leverage as many processes as possible. We can market to them, we can engage with them for memberships, we can share information about up and coming events. So I think the main thing that Dynamics gives us is that consolidated data model, and then the ability to easily leverage processes and add processes on top of that data.
Thanks, Graham. Another question we've got is, what customization options are available within Dynamics 365 to adapt to the unique needs of different non-profit organisations?
Yeah, this is one that comes up quite a lot with our clients, especially when we introduce the not-for-profit cloud. It is a purpose-built not-for-profit solution, and it has a range of functionality. As you've seen on some of the screens that I was demonstrating today, we started in the fundraising engagement app. We ended up in the customer insights journeys tool. We were in Outlook. We were in Power BI. So it comes with all of these tools pre-packaged. And essentially the main thing that we need to get across, or that we focus getting across to the number of clients, is the level of customization that comes with Dynamics 365 and the Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit. What we do is work very closely with you to identify what are the key components. So essentially it will look like a shopping list to most people and say, well, we need this module, but we need this part of it at this stage. We may not use that. We may use it in 6 months. So the level of customization within Dynamics as a whole is incredibly high. We are also able to speak people's language. Not everybody refers to people as a donor. Not everybody uses the term member. Some people use organizations, some people use clients, some people use constituents. So it's about not only customizing the solution in terms of functionality, but also customizing the solution in terms of the language that we use, the terms that the system shows people when they log in, simply the way that we refer to donors can help people understand the system better. And not only does this give the organizations that feel of personalization, but it also increases user adoption, because people as users then feel comfortable using the solutions because they know what a donor is, they know what a constituent is. The system has been tailored and personalized to meet their needs. And that's really where the high levels of customization come in with Dynamics.
Thank you. And I think we've got time for one more, and it's around the availability, the costs. Will it be a separate product to the standard D365 license, or is it bundled in?
Yes, so essentially the Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit is a collection of already existing what we call first-party applications. So the Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit is essentially sales and marketing bundled together into the Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit. Now it is then enriched with lots of Teams integration, lots of SharePoint integration, lots of additional functionality that you can then avail of. So it is essentially a bundled set of products, and the licensing for each then is reflected in the overall cost. I will highlight, of course, as well that Microsoft do offer quite competitive and quite generous not-for-profit discounting in terms of your licensing as well. So the price that not-for-profit organizations are generally not the same as other industries or other organizations outside of non-profit. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that, Graham. And that's us. Yep, we have reached our 45 minutes. So I'd like to thank both Graham and Jivtesh for walking us through that. Great presentation, so thank you both. Apologies, we had a bit of connection issue at the start, so there was some voiceovers that probably weren't aligned to the correct video, so apologies for that. As I said at the start, this webinar has been recorded. It will be sent to you either later today or tomorrow. And if you've got any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us directly. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon.